That's where the problem lies.
Thank you.
It's frustrating to be humble.
Thank you. Pleasure being here this morning. My name is Field Cersei. Can everybody hear me?
No. And I'm right on here, right in front.
Put it, yeah, push it a little bit.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right, Jack, way to go.
Introduce yourself, Field.
My name is Field Cersei. I'm from East Cobb, Marietta, Georgia. I'm here with my wife today, and I work with Traffic Truth, but we're just all volunteers. But Jack mentioned my name so many times. My wife turned to me and says, "Is Jack going to throw you under the bus?" But no, I see that we have a very intelligent audience here today. In fact, a lot of my presentation, some people have already stood up and talked about a lot of things I'm going to talk about. But what I want to talk about is regionalism and its threat to the Republic. How regionalism and public-private partnerships are tearing down constitutional limited self-government and genuine free markets.
Right.
What do I got to press here?
Right.
The first one? That's not it. There we go. So I got some young folks in the audience today. I got a lot of older folks too, but I got a question for you. Is the United States of America, is it a republic or a democracy?
Republic.
Very good.
It's supposed to be.
Or is this something else? Well, I can tell you, I've been involved in the Tea Party for the last 3 years, and my passion has been economic liberty and personal liberty. And what's happening with regionalism is a threat to our republic. For those of you that don't know, a republic, under Article 4, is guaranteed, under the Article of the Constitution, a republic is guaranteed to every state and union a republican form of government. What a republic is a form of government in which the supreme power rests with the people, and representatives or officers for the people are officially granted and alienable rights to represent them in public matters via the Constitution. In other words, we have elected officials that represent the will of the government, the will of the people. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's what Abraham Lincoln said in the Gettysburg Address. Why is regionalism, regional governance a threat to our freedom? Well, number one, it's driven by government, not by the people. You've all seen from Jack's presentation how the government is driving this program is not coming from the citizens. Second, it diminishes the power of local governments. It's putting in another level of government, a regional government layer, in place between the state and the local. Third, increasing levels of authority for executive branch officers. Four, authority is implemented through appointments. The regional roundtables, the councils, these are all appointed positions. And fifth, unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats wield the power. Now, I'll give you some examples. Right up the road here, not too far away, Chattanooga Area Regional Council of Governments. Does anybody know what's going on up in Chattanooga? Have you heard about the 5 counties in Georgia that are being pulled into the Chattanooga regional area? Okay? There's the mayor of Chattanooga has signed a memorandum of agreement to receive grant money. To get this grant money, he had to agree to certain policies that are coming from the federal government. To implement these policies of regionalism, sustainable development, Agenda 21, and so forth, just like Mike Lopez was talking about. That's an example right close to home here. Another example is the Georgia Transportation Investment Act of 2010. And as Jack has explained to you, this is the state of Georgia. There's 12 different regions, and we're in Region 1. Now, I would like to make a comment about calling this a SPLOST. You have a local SPLOST, which means Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. If your county passes a SPLOST, if you vote for it, there's a list of projects, and your county is required by law to build or fulfill every one of those projects by law. They cannot deviate, they have to do every one of them. Okay? The TIA, the Transportation Investment Act, this referendum, is not a SPLOST. Because the list of projects that are on the list right now the money can be moved to other projects on that final constrained list. And you also saw that Jack pointed out that there's money for the local government's 25%. No project has even been allocated for that. So you don't know how that money is going to be spent. So you're voting yourself a tax, and you don't even know really where that money is going to go and how it's going to be managed. Now, at the state level, you have a transportation planning director, you have a regional roundtable, an executive committee, a citizen review panel that's appointed by the governor and the Speaker of the House. There are 12 regions, as I mentioned earlier, and from each county there's one mayor and one commissioner that's on your local region. And as Mike Lopez mentioned earlier, it's a funding mechanism for regional governance, or Agenda 21. Here's a little close-up look of Region 1, Northwest Georgia. You've got, it's actually over 10 years. The most updated numbers we're seeing now is $1.4 billion of tax over the next 10 years for those 15 counties. But if you want to see where this is really going, let's step back and look at what's really happening here. This is the big picture. This is from the Georgia Tech Center for Quality Growth and Regional Development. This is what the future holds. Massive mega regions. There's also a website called America 2050, and you can see how all this is planning and gearing toward these mega regions. But what's happening, folks, is our constitutionally provided government is being upended with this regional governance. It's taking away our right as a citizen with the consent of the government. TSPLOST is a top-down, not local approach. And I should say, it should not say TSPLOST. But everybody knows about that, but that's what we have on the slide. As I mentioned earlier, Transportation Planning Director, appointed by the governor. Regional Roundtable, appointed by the legislature. Executive Committee, elected by the Roundtable. The Citizen Review Panel, appointed by the Speaker, can appoint 3 members. The Lieutenant Governor can appoint 2. I think the Speaker is involved in some of that too. Is that right?
The Speaker, 3.
Speaker has 3.
Yeah, the governor's not appointing those. It's the Speaker.
Okay, it's the Speaker. Okay.
Lieutenant Governor.
And so I mentioned earlier, there's 2 members from every county, and depending on how many counties are in your region, that's how many make up your regional panel. The project selection is a top-down approach. Local governments submit potential projects to DOT. The Georgia DOT Planning Director ensures conformity with approved criteria and creates a long list of projects. GDOT Planning Director collaborates with the Executive Committee on regional project selection and pricing each project. Roundtable approves or rubber stamps the list, and then GDOT is the contractor on all projects statewide. So, friends, if you want to have a voice, if you want to have local government, you want to have local control, you need to vote this thing down. We need to vote again in 2 more years and come up with a better way to solve our transportation issues. We do need to solve them, we need to pay for it, but coming in with another list with the same mechanism that's going to take away our freedoms is not the right solution. Basically what's happening is it's taking away home rule. Home rule is just local self-government. The state constitution of Georgia advocates home rule. The core principle is that local governments, our authorities, or populations seeking measure of freedom from the state legislature. This new era of regional governance and taxation will end the autonomy local counties have possessed to control their own destinies. If we develop a regional transportation authority and approve the 2012 TI referendum, problems created by another county will become your county's financial burden. There's a new concept out there, it's called regional equity. You've probably heard about some counties are donor counties and some counties are receivers. Question?
I was going to say that it's in our Georgia Constitution. It's Article 2, Section 9, Paragraph 6, the home rule. And it's covered in Article 9, Section 2, Paragraphs. Article 2, Section 9, Paragraph 6. And Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph 6.
So it's in there multiple times.
It's in our state constitution, the protection for home rule.
Right, thanks for pointing that out. Regional equity, this is where from each county according to its ability to pay, and to each county according to its need. What does that sound like? Soviet model. What does Soviet mean? A Soviet is a system of councils. This upsets me, I'm sorry. We have to fight this, folks. This is taking away our freedoms. A Soviet is a system of councils that report to an apex council and implement a predetermined outcome affecting a region or neighborhood, often arranged through a process of facilitated consensus. Members of the Soviet Council are chosen by virtue of their willingness to comply with that outcome and their one-mindedness with the group. Now, how do you think these people are going to be appointed to these councils? What do you think they're going to put on there?
One-minded people.
One-minded people. Soviets are the operating mechanism of a government-controlled economy, whether it be socialism or public-private partnerships. The second paragraph of freedom is public-private partnerships. They're often touted as growing jobs or economy, but in reality they're basically government-sanctioned monopolies or cronyism.
Amen. Sorry.
That's right.
Preach.
Increases government power through additional taxation, hot lanes, toll roads, policy enforcement, implement regional or sustainable policies. I mentioned earlier these grants that are being offered for these communities. You're having to sign on to these policies to get this money, just like the mayor did in Chattanooga. Also, through eminent domain proceedings, we had several people bring up the example, Kilo versus New London, and also there's one closer to home, Cherokee County, ball ground recycling. Let's talk about Kilo versus New London. The city of the city of New London partnered with a private development company to have them declare eminent domain on a blighted area of homes. They said it was blighted, the tax base was low. So the city used their eminent domain power to take the property, and the developers are going to do mixed-use development, which would supposedly increase the tax base, so more revenue for the county or the city. Well, what happened was the economy tanked, and the property is now sitting vacant. This went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was a landmark case, Kilo versus New London, and the Supreme Court, in fact, ruled in favor of the city. Now, after this happened, a lot of state legislatures around the country started passing more stringent eminent domain controls for their cities and counties. The second public-private partnership I want to point out to, now let me just say this, not every public-private partnership is bad. We have a little park right near our home in Marietta, East Cobb. The neighbors and the community got together and they worked with the county to put in this little park, but it benefited everybody. It was not a private development company that made money off of it. It was not a manufacturing facility next door that made money off of it. That is an acceptable use of eminent domain and public-private property functions. But in this particular case here, ball ground recycling, this is going on right now in Cherokee County next door. The county partnered with a private business to do recycling of stumps. They issued an $18 million development authority bond. And when it involves a piece of property for this person to move his business so he could move it away from where some other homes and so forth. What happens? Everything was going great. The business is making money, making profits. But then, what happened? 2008, the economy tanked. Construction went down, no more recycling of stumps, so now the business has failed. Now the Cherokee taxpayers are on the hook for $100,000 per month.
For 37 years.
So,
And he still works it and makes money off of it.
yeah. So this is what we call a public-private partnership that is private profits and public loss.
And they filed bankruptcy last week.
That's right. This article talks about the filing bankruptcy. The reason I'm bringing all these things up is that we don't have a good basic understanding of economic liberty. We don't understand the free market system. We've allowed it to become a crony, mixed-use capitalist system. And it benefits select individuals and select companies, not the general public.
And also, that's a competitor of mine. It's unfair advantage.
Exactly. Very good point. In our state legislature this past session, AB 475, this bill was passed by the House, and there's some key phrases in here that I want to point out that I think with, they use these nice sounding words and they talk about how it's going to grow the economy and grow jobs and so forth, but they don't understand what's in these bills and how they're going to affect our freedoms. Here we go, it talks about, this is where the county can create additional development authorities and for both public and private components, and underline here, to provide that such decision by the authority should not be subject to review. Now, how can the county do that and not be subject to the citizen's review, and that there's no review for the consent of the governor? So why should we care about this? Well, these policies being implemented at every level of government, at the national, state, county, and local city level. Grants are offered to lure governments into accepting these policies. As I mentioned earlier, they're able to get the money as long as they implement the policies. So like the memorandum of agreement up in Chattanooga. They use pleasant sounding names to camouflage a top-down, centralized planning program. And they use public acceptance is faded by touting the programs as growing jobs or the economy. And then they use vision or consistent building workshops to get public buy-in to a predetermined outcome. Now, the TA project list. We did have some public meetings last summer to talk about it. But a lot of my colleagues went to these meetings. And the decision was already made. There's no change in what's on the list. Even Representative Ed Sessler went and met with them and tried to say, hey, look at some alternative solutions. No, the list is set. This is it. So there is really no buy-in from the citizens. They want you to accept what they've already decided. What this is called, folks, is called the Delphi technique. The goal of the Delphi technique is to lead a target group of people to a predetermined outcome while giving the illusion of taking public input and under the pretext of being accountable to the public. This is what happened when they started talking about these projects and explaining it to the public last summer. Now, we've been to these meetings, but there's ways you can challenge and counter this, and you can download this presentation, and there's more information on how to challenge the Delphi technique. But it's something you need to be aware of. It's a tactic you need to know about. And I'll just skip through these ways to counter that. So who's promoting the TIA? Well, the governor, the Speaker of the House, construction firms, developers, people who benefit from the taxes that are going to be taken in, chambers of commerce, and there's a number of nonprofit organizations that are involved in promoting this. American Planning Association, ICLEI, which is the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, Georgia Chambers of Commerce, the Atlanta Regional Commission, here's the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission, and the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. These agencies and organizations are promoting this. So what's the problem? Well, number one, our local, state, and federal officers have taken an oath to the Constitution. Number one. Two, regional councils and transportation planning boards are appointed positions and are unelected and unaccountable people. Three, regional governance is incompatible with Americans' unalienable constitutional rights and values. And four, public-private partnership economic model negates our free market system. It introduces a new communitarian model. Now, that's probably a new word for most of you. I challenge you to go look it up. Communitarianism, where the rights of the community outweigh the rights of the individual. So your private property rights are less important than the rights of the community as a whole. This is the socialist, Soviet, communist model. And whether you call it socialism or communism, whatever, communitarian is really, this graph here kind of sums it up. What we have here is we have the government working with multinational companies, construction and development companies, and NGOs creating public-private partnerships. And then through regional councils and government agencies, they're creating basically a global corporate fascism, where the citizens now become the customers. So we have no say. The consent of the government is taken away. The problem with this, it negates our natural rights, as defined in the Declaration. It's against genuine free market capitalism. It has unelected, unaccountable technocrats that are making the decisions, and it's a top-down, centralized control approach. So where does this all lead? When our country was founded, we were founded on the principles of freedom of conscience, expression, association, and freedom of trade. We had peace through individual liberty, private property, leading to abundance and prosperity. But over the course of a couple hundred years, we've gone from a free enterprise model to a mixed economy model, one that is sustainable development, and to a more government-controlled economy. This is regionalism, Agenda 21, and collectivism, ultimately globalism, and ultimately after that, tyranny. Which philosophy of rights is correct? This is just comparing the U.S. Declaration of Independence with the U.N. Declaration of Human Rights. Under our declaration that all men are created equal, they're endowed with greater certain inalienable rights. Under the U.N. Declaration of Human Rights, rights and freedoms may in no way be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. In short, you were born with rights under the Declaration. The government exists to protect them. You and the product of your labor belong to you. Under a more global perspective, government grants, restricts, and withdraws your rights according to its needs. You are the product of your, and the product of labor belongs to the community. That's communitarianism. And we're talking about eminent domain. Yes, eminent domain is in our U.S. Constitution. But there's a provision there that private property should not be taken for public use without just compensation. Man's rights are inherent as natures of man, as such they are unalienable. Under the UN Declaration of Human Rights, property should not be arbitrarily taken. Man's rights are granted by other men, as such they can be taken away by men. And this is just comparing the Constitution versus communitarianism. Under the Constitution, it's freedom from tyranny, protect life, liberty, and property, protect our unalienable rights, protect human rights. The growth template under the Constitution is highest and best use via free markets. And compare that with communitarianism, regional equity and social equity, environment, economy, and equity are the principles there. Government acts as God, protect earth and humans, and smart growth and new urbanization. Continuing, under the Constitution, scientific thresholds of proof required. We need to have a cost-benefit analysis of these TIA plans. Under communitarian, lack of certainty not a basis for inaction. Value system, equality of opportunity, and the rights under communitarianism, globalism, good of many outweighs the good of the few. And then the role of free market capitalism as a source of wealth and opportunity. Under communitarianism, the source of social injustice to be steered by government. So what can we do about this? Well, first of all, we can educate ourselves on the principles of liberty. And this is one of the greatest books I've ever read. It's called 5,000 Year League. I suggest you get this if you haven't already read it. But it talks about the principles of a limited government, the core principles of the proper form of limited government. The second book you might want to take a look at is, this is on economic liberty. It's called The Law, written by Frederick Bastiat. And this was written 150 years ago by a French economist. It could have been written last week because it talks about how governments plunder our wealth. Finally, learn about the Delphi technique, how it's used in consensus building, attend local city council and county commission meetings, attend your regional commission meetings if they have them, and the TSPLOST TI meetings. You need to engage your neighbors. You need to spread the word. What's the counter strategy? Stop the creation of non-elected regional government councils that are difficult to hold accountable. Stop local governments from taking state and federal grants that come with massive strings attached to enforce compliance. And 3, remove outside organizations and stakeholder groups that are pressuring government officials to do their bidding. Protect your freedoms of the future. Vote no on July 31st on the regional transportation referendum. Review your city, county, master, and comprehensive plans. See what's in there. I haven't read your plan yet, but we've read our plan in Cobb County. We know what's there. And these policies are being implemented at the county level. Review your county budget. See where the money's going. You've got to follow the money. Rededicate your community to preserving constitutional property rights. Deprogram city, county, and state leaders or replace them. Deprogram planning and zoning members. Say no to regional governments. Say no to public-private partnerships. Speak up and speak out against legislators and agencies that propose schemes that will slowly choke out political and economic liberty. And these are just some knowledge I'd like to put up here. Sources for my information, where I've got the ideas of the slides I've got. And I'll give you where you can download this presentation from my website, indefenseofliberty.tv. And you can email me at that email address. So, does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
In our locality, we have a TSPLOST that has already been passed and it's being implemented. but it is not being implemented according to the way it was written. What kind of recourse do we have to make the city council do what we voted them to do?
That's a good question. You know the answer to that, Jack?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, in our community, we have a TSPLOST that has already been passed and is being implemented.
Okay.
The council has only implemented part of it and have refused to implement the rest of it. What recourse do we have?
So the council refused to do that? How many people live in your town?
About 1,500.
Why should have them all show up down there and say, do what you
Well,
want?
we've tried and no one will show up but us.
It's really hard when you don't have everybody backing you up because,
But is there anything that we can threaten them with?
without seeing what,
Sam,
how it was
would-
written, what the legislation stuff is, I don't know what's been written in there, what was agreed upon. I
Sam
really-
Owens would be the person. to come.
Well, yeah, you might, you
What
know,
about your
Attorney
local
General.
legislators? And what about your state senators or your House of Representatives, your representative from
Well,
the House?
see, we're new here, so I don't know how it works.
What we're